Follower by Seamus Heaney. This is an incredibly powerful poem in which a man recalls back to his youth to watching his father ploughing in the fields of his native Ireland. It starts off very explicitly with the speaker saying, My father worked with a horseplough. His shoulders globed like a full sail strung between the shafts and the furrow. The horse strained at his clicking tongue. A couple of things I want to emphasise here is you've got here his shoulders globed like a full sail strung between the shafts and the furrow. You've obviously got the repetition of sibilants of the and sh sounds creating sibilants here. But what this really does is this sound really emphasises just how smoothly the man's father was able to plough into the earth. It wasn't an effort, even though he put a lot of hard work into it. We get the impression that it really wasn't that much of an effort. It's a really smooth shoulders globed like a full sail strung between the shafts and the furrow. It's really that that constant rhythm that really goes throughout the whole poem. We see it being iambic tetrameter mostly, and it really keeps that rhythm throughout, and the repetition of the s and the sh sounds creating the sibilants really helps to give us that sound of the man's father ploughing the field. It goes on to tell us that the horse strained at its clicking tongue. Now the idea here, strained, really gives the idea that a horse is a big strong animal, but even the horse is straining. It's really emphasising that it's tough, hard work that's being done, but the man's father is able to maintain this hard work. The word choice of clicking is also interesting. That idea that the horse is straining at its clicking tongue. It really shows the father's mastery. It really shows just how much of an expert the father is at his job. Even though it's a really tough, difficult job, even the horses know who the strong man is, who the man who really controls the whole situation is, and is able to because he's so skilled. The idea here of his shoulders globed like a full sail strung between the shafts and the furrow. Well, the shafts and the furrow are two parts of the plough that the man's father is using to plough the field. And the second idea of the globed like a full sail strung is the idea that his shoulders are so huge, so big, so powerful, it's like a great big ship sail blowing in the wind. Also notice here the writer's use of enjambment, how he's not used any punctuation at the end of the second line, and that is the second line, of the word strung down to between the shafts and the furrow. He's used enjambment here really to create the idea of just how huge and powerful his father's shoulders were. It really emphasised to us that there's no need to break up. It's just showing us the size of the man's shoulders. We go down to the second stanza, and he tells us very plainly, very simply, that his father is an expert. Short sentence, direct to the point. All the focus is now on this huge, powerful man working the fields. He's used a short sentence to really emphasise it and to make us reflect on just how much of an expert his father was. He tells us he would set the wing and fit the bright steel-pointed sock. Now this idea here of wing and sock, these are just parts of the plough that he uses to dig up the earth. He goes on to tell us that the sod rolled over without breaking. Now the sod is the earth that's on top of a field, and what a farmer wants to do is he wants to really be turning this sod over perfectly, because it's where all the nutrients are on the bottom of that sod, and when he turns it upside down perfectly, it means that all the mineral rich soil and earth is now on the top of the field. The fact that the man's father is able to do it without breaking just emphasises that he is an absolute expert. That is the best way you want it. That way you can guarantee that the nutrient-rich soil that's been underneath the top of the field is now on the top. It's going to complete 180 degrees, a bit like flipping a pancake. And it continues on, the writer continues on using enjambment here onto the next stanza, really to emphasise the continuous idea, the continuous roll of the soil, the continual roll and digging up of the soil that his father is doing with the horse's plough. Very quickly just point out the rhyme scheme here. We've got wing and breaking we've got sock and pluck here. Now this is interesting. Wing and breaking, we've obviously got a perfect full rhyme, but the idea here of sock and pluck, they kind of rhyme, but they don't really, so it's a half rhyme. So we can say it's an A-B rhyme scheme, but really those second and fourth lines, they really are half rhymes, they're not fully done. Now Heaney's done this intentionally. It may well be to try and emphasise that the link between himself and his father, how strong it was, but even still there were imperfections. Or perhaps he's using this imperfect rhyme, the half rhyme on the second and fourth lines. Maybe he's doing it to show the flow, the way that the earth is composed. The idea that although it's quite smooth and quite easy, or not easy, but straight ploughing, just like his father's lines, that the furrows in the earth. At the same time, he's emphasising at times there's slight errors and it goes over a slight bit too many big bits of dirt or sod, and that's what it's trying to really emphasise. It's just that, you know, nothing's really perfect. Not his relationship with his father necessarily, not necessarily the ground that he's digging up, and also not necessarily the life itself. And perhaps that's why he's used this imperfect rhyme scheme, although it isn't A-B. He uses enjambment here to go on to it, and he tells us that at the head rig with a single pluck. Now the word choice of pluck is very delicate. It's a very delicate kind of word, pluck. You may pluck a feather from a bird. So the idea that all it takes for his father to do is a single pluck of the reins that the horses are connected to. A single pluck is all it takes for him to have the sweating team turning around and back into the land. The sweating team here are the horses. It's the horses which are towing the ploughs. Again, it's the word choice here of the word sweating which really emphasises to us just how much hard work this job was, even for a team of horses all together to turn around. Really emphasises how hard work the work was. And again, being an expert, all it takes is a single pluck of the reins for the horses to know exactly what their role is, exactly what they have to do, and exactly what they need to do to make the job successful. We then have the writer really focusing in on his father here. We're told his eye narrowed and angled at the ground, mapping the furrow exactly. The word choice of mapping really again just emphasises again just how much of an expert his father is. He's mapping it like an explorer quite possibly would, like he knows every square inch of the land that he's using. The word exactly further emphasises how much of an expert it was, and the narrowing and angling of the ground really just again further emphasises just how much his father knows about this, just how much his father knows about the job that he's doing, and how much of an expert he is in doing that. We're then told that the writer stumbled in his hobnailed wake. Now, the word hobnailed here is an Irish colloquialism. It simply just means all the marks in the ground that the plough and the farmer's feet have made. So we're told that the speaker, he stumbled in his father's hobnailed wake, fell sometimes on the polished sod. Now again, this word polished sod really contrasts with this word fell. We're told here that the speaker fell sometimes on the polished sod. Now the word choice of polished sod, again the sod's just the earth which has been turned up by the plough, but it's the word choice here of polished, which not only emphasises how much of an expert his father is at it, it gives that the word choice of polished has connotations of things being clean, of it being perfect, of it being precise. There's a real juxtaposition here, a real juxtaposition, and that's two contrasting ideas against each other. We have the clumsiness here of the speaker falling down on his father's polished sod, the absolute perfect sod that it should be for a farmer. We then we're told a little bit here that sometimes his father rode him on his back. He gave him a piggyback, dipping and rising to his plod. And if you listen to the way that the rhythm's structured, it is mostly iambic tetrameter. But again, just like the idea of the rhyme scheme being A-B, it's not entirely perfect. It's not 100% perfect. There's some issues with it. I'll show you on the next stanza how it's iambic tetrameter, but not necessarily perfect. The idea here, the connection of the dipping and rising to his plod, really emphasises the rhythm of it. I stumbled in his hobnailed wake, fell sometimes on the polished sod. Sometimes he rode me on his back, dipping and rising to his plod. The gerunds here, the gerunds of the idea of dipping and rising to his plod, the amount of syllables in each line as well, really add to that rhythmic up and down nature, just to help us imagine even further structurally the way that the metre and form work. It really emphasises that idea of the boy going up and down, riding piggyback on his father's back as his father continues to do the farming. I'll show you here what I mean about the different ideas of the iambic tetrameter. We know iambic is obviously a mixture of unstressed, stressed. So we're told here, I wanted to grow up and plough. If we break it up, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. So we've got the idea of iambic tetrameter here. But if you do it for the whole poem, there are times when there might be unstressed, stressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, and so on. And that really is, again, just to emphasise how even the metre, even the form and metre of this are not perfect. Just like life, just like perhaps it hints at his father and his relationship, we know that he's in great admiration, great love of his father, great admiration at the incredibly powerful and strong work that he does. And yet we also know that this boy is quite clumsy in comparison. Maybe that's why he's decided to use this imperfect iambic tetrameter, really to try and get across this idea that things aren't entirely perfect. But he tells us here, where the speaker's now directly speaking about himself, we get the personal pronoun. I wanted to grow up and plough, to close one eye, stiffen my arm. Now this idea here is again the idea of power of perfection, being just like his father. But he tells us, all I ever did was follow in his broad shoulder round the farm. Broad shoulder again, broad shadow again, emphasising how strong, how big his father was. And we're told that all the speaker ever did was follow. There was no chance that he could be like his father, a big, strong man able to plough the fields with such expert precision. We're told that all he did was follow in his father's broad shoulder around the farm, which gives it quite a sad tone. It's not the most positive, nicest of tones. We go here now, a couple of stanzas. He goes on and tells us, I was a nuisance, tripping and falling, yapping always. So he was always talking, he was a pain, he wasn't very useful to his father. Even though his father was this great expert at ploughing and farming, his son is not an expert, and he was always annoying him, always tripping and falling over, always talking. Perhaps this word yapping, which is a colloquialism for talking, perhaps this is an indication the writer is trying to give to us, an acknowledgement that no, he's not going to be the great strong man and worker that his father was, but he's got a skill in communication, in writing. The poet has that skill perhaps. He goes on and tells us that today, now, today, this word but signals a change. It signals a change to the present day, and he tells us, but today it is my father who keeps stumbling behind me and will not go away. And again, this idea of enjambment, how there's no punctuation there or there. The enjambment's used to give the idea that now, after all the years of the boy following his father, it's now his father who continues to. It's now his father who continues to follow him around the place. The idea of stumbling obviously echoes the idea of old age, but at the same time, it is the idea perhaps that his father's not able to be quite as successful as his son in this instance. We know his son, the speaker, it's really quite semi-autobiographical. The speaker is the poet, the speaker is the writer. There's an acknowledgement that he could never be as good as his father, but nowadays, as his father can no longer work the fields so much, it's the idea that it's now his father who keeps on stumbling behind him. The son is now leading the way. And the father will not go away. The father will not allow the son to be by himself. And that can be read both ways. That can be read to be really quite a nice thing, the idea that his father's always by his side. But there's an idea there that perhaps this boy wants to be independent and strong. When he was growing up, he was always by his father's side, literally and metaphorically, always in his shadow, trying to be just like him. Perhaps now there's an acknowledgement by the speaker that he wants to be by himself, and he doesn't actually want to have his father always following by his side. The main idea here, the main themes in the poem are obviously admiration for his father, the absolute love between the father and his son, and also the love for the land as well, admiration for the job that his father does. And there's also that theme of pride. The boy is proud of his father, proud of what his father has achieved and accomplished, but there's also an element of pride within himself, an element of pride within the boy and what the boy is, what the speaker I should say, is able to achieve in the future. I very quickly just want to finish off by going over one more time with you the metre and form, just to show you what exactly I mean. So we're told here, I was on you since tripping falling. We've got unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, and we've got a stress in the end here. We're told here again, we're told, behind me and will not go away. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, we've got a strange one there, and we've got unstressed, stressed there. So by and large we can say it's 1, 2, 3, 4. We can say it's iambic, and because there's 4 of them, it's iambic tetrameter. But as I said before, the fact that it's not exactly constant, it's not exactly regular, it's just like the AB rhyme scheme being irregular. It doesn't always follow it exactly and perfectly, and that is really to reflect the idea that Heaney is trying to show to us again that things are not perfect, just like the soil, just like the earth, just like his relationship, everything is not perfect. I hope this has been useful to you, and again, any questions or anything like that, please feel free to post them in the YouTube channel. Apologies for hearing my cat all throughout it. He has not stopped all night, so I do apologise for that as well.